according to the tables which we have assembled, it is our estimate that 4% of the American people own 85% of the wealth of America, and that over 70% of the people of America don't own enough to pay the debts that they owe. How many men ever went to a barbecue and would let one man take off the table what's intended for 9/10 of the people to eat? The only way you'll ever be able to feed the balance of the people is to make that man come back and bring back some of that grub he ain't got no business with.
Hello guys, welcome back to the Mandela Effect channel. Today is episode 2 of my economic model series, where I essentially will go over different economic models that have been put in place throughout time in various states, or just economic models that have been thought about but never came to being. And today we're going to look at Longism, which is the personalist ideology, syncretic ideology of the authoritarian leader of Louisiana who served as governor of Louisiana from 1932 to 1935, Huey Long, nicknamed famously as the Kingfish. There are various interpretations of his ideological beliefs, but the main conclusion that is derived by most historians and economists from his economic and political rhetoric was that he was a populist. Although there were contradictions to this, as Long himself claimed that his beliefs were unique. It should be also noted that Longism, that we're going to talk about today, was an international economic model or ideology, but rather was something that just gained traction among some voters and some individuals in the United States. Long himself had his own paramilitary squads and used electoral fraud to stay in power, thus bringing the whole implication that he had a dictatorial style of governance. The idea that he created was called the Share the Wealth program in February 1934. While Long claimed that he wasn't a communist, conservatives slandered him and showed that it had characteristics that opposed traditional laissez-faire capitalism. He believed in excessive federal spending, wealth taxes, and wealth distribution, essentially the government having a lot more influence over the economy and intervening a lot more than traditional conservatives would like the government to. This is also indicated by the excessive federal spending, as this was only really seen in more progressive policies like the ones used by FDR, as traditional golden standard individuals such as Herbert Hoover would have really liked not to have too much federal spending. And moving back to Long, his slogan was "Make every man a king." And this implies that it was to collectivize the wealth owned by Americans as a whole. But most importantly, not collectivizing it like a communist state would. Not collectivizing it as in a state now owns all of the property and means of production, is just simply taking all of the wealth that the American state has and dividing it equally for every single citizen in America. Essentially, everybody would make the same amount of money, and this would lead to an equal wage between American to American. Thus, it would create equal wages and destroy the concept of some Americans being innately more wealthy and powerful than others. This would also entail progressive tax codes targeted at millionaires. His left-wing populist federal tax and spend policies would restrict individual wealth rights to maximum inheritance in $5 million in 1930s money. And sticking with 1930s money from now on, the maximum income annually would be $1 million. The private wealth and fortune would be up to $50 million. And as mentioned before, while his economic ideas weren't capitalistic completely, it can't be considered communism as there was no policy of collectivization. Most importantly, Long still believed in the American dream of private property as well as profit motive. He just encouraged very hard government and the belief that the government had to regulate the economy to the highest degree for everybody to truly be equal, which garnered opposition by many in America's political and corporate elite. Now, going back to communists wanted to distance themselves from Huey Long. They argued that their policies were nothing like his Share the Wealth program, with certain communists arguing that his policies were inherently anti labor. Economists argued that his program would benefit the poor very little, with $1.50 per family, even with the wealth confiscation. Yet, there was a utopian aspect to Long's vision that addressed common people's concerns of medical expenses, war pensions, farming assistance, projects, and higher education made affordable during the time of the Great Depression, which may be a future video idea. We'll have to see. But just to kind of give a hint to it, when the Great Depression did come, we had Roosevelt who brought the New Deals. And the New Deals did actually look at some of these things that Long was also bringing up, such as war pensions, farming assistance, and projects, which were very important in getting the American capitalist order back online after the Depression. Now, despite this interesting program, we never got to see Long as the President of the United States or even a furthered political career as he was assassinated, ending his interesting but short ideological line.